Hey everyone, this is Geeky Panda here, Brandon guys, with another video. Now, usually around this time, I'm busy editing content on my YouTube channel for ConnectiCon, including the cosplay music videos, interviews, showcasing the show floor, so on and so forth. But this year, I decided to opt out from it. I decided to skip it intentionally because last year I wasn't able to attend, sadly, because of my work schedule. And as of right now, it was a really good move for me to skip out because I don't believe that this convention was worth going to anymore. Now, I'm not saying entirely that the convention sucks or I hate it. No, I just don't believe that what they're doing to it is helping. I believe that what the changes that they're making to it and all the stuff that they're mixing into it is hurting the convention more than helping it, you know? Like, I think they're mismanaging it, basically. Now, I first attended ConnectiCon back when I was, back in 2003. My dad took me and my sister over there for Saturday, and we had a blast at the, it was at the college. It was small, but it was like, it was really cool. And I wasn't able to attend until 2013, like 10 years later. Only, my good friend, Time Force Nubis, said, hey, this is a convention here in the Harvard Convention Center. It's really worth going to. You should really check it out. And I took his advice, and I had a lot of fun back in 2013. And the next 2 years, it was great. It was fantastic. Like, the con footage I recorded for it was, just awesome. The informal dance was great. The press room for ConnectiCon, it is one of the best press rooms I've ever been to for any convention. So it beats out PAX East, New York Comic Con. Like, you guys, you get a gold star for that. And the people who run that room, you guys are awesome. Without you guys' help, the place that you have for us for the press, without that, it would have just made it like any, it just made it extra special, basically. Now, ConnectiCon started off as an anime con, basically, concentrating on anime, video games, sci-fi, and other geek, things, and it was cool. It was like a diamond in the rough, basically, and I was happy that it was able to stand out on its own, and grew, basically, because the convention has at least 10,000 people going to it every year, like I believe 10 to 12K, but it wasn't able to break the 13K mark that it did back in, I believe, 2012 or 2013. Like, I highly doubt they're gonna break 13K attendance, and I'm not including warm bodies. I'm actually, like, I want, like, hard proof evidence without the warm bodies coming into play here. Like, ConnectiCon now, I think it's going more to a Comic-Con style convention where it has, this year had a lot of guests for it. They kept announcing guests. They think, like, the guests would help bring in more people because of the diversity of it. Like, having a diverse amount of guests that come to convention is cool and awesome, but that's not what ConnectiCon really was to me. The ConnectiCon was more about the other content it had. It was about panels, the events, the game room, the dealer's room, everything. Not the guests or the tabletop gaming or all that stuff. You have to think about this, that what does this convention have that others don't? What does it distinguish itself or concentrate on that the other conventions, what makes it so special? Because in the New England area, as you can see, like right here, it includes a couple of states. Why should I go to this convention when I have so many other ones out around the whole area, which there's over 20 to 30 conventions in the New England area alone, and that's between anime, video games, Comic-Con, and more. So you have to think to yourself, ConnectiCon has competition. They can't just be going on their good name and be like their brand saying, hey, our name alone will get people to come here because, people love us, the content we provide, people enjoy. No, that's not going to work anymore because your name is getting tarnished. People are calling ConnectiCon a scam now. Like, the events that happened this year, which I'll get to, is now coming on everyone's mind and people are talking about it. Now, the stuff they've been changing, the prices. Let's tackle this head on here. The prices have been steadily increasing almost year to year, basically. Like, for instance, at the door registration or near convention rate, it was basically $80, but there was like a $5 service charge for it because of apparently the company they went with that processed the registration for the tickets. Which is really stupid since, there are conventions out there that are a lot bigger and smaller that does always like a flat rate fee of like, okay, it's $60. No extra service charge, just pay that money, you're good. The thing is that if it's getting more expensive, even the pre-reg, people will say like, what, why don't you just do pre-reg? It's cheaper that way. Yeah, but even the pre-reg is getting more expensive as well. So you have to think about this. If the convention costs $80 to $85, that's at the door. Well, guess what? This now is becoming an expensive convention because Anime Boston, which is a convention that is 2 to 3 times bigger, a lot more people go to, a lot of content. Guess what? They're a cheaper convention than you guys, ConnectiCon. You know, their ticket prices aren't as expensive as you guys. And that is something to think about. So with that, you know, they've been changing around a few things, like for the past 2 to 3 years, or maybe even more, they've been having off-site stuff, which presents a security and safety issue, because one year, two congoers got mugged because they went to an off-site event, they were going back, and they got mugged right there on the street, and it was on the news. It was also, they made a Tumblr post about their experience, and it was a security issue. So you're thinking to yourself, why don't you just have it all in the convention center or right there at the Hotel Marriott as well? Like, why have it off-site and increase the security factor and risk, then just have it all in one place to make it a lot easier for everyone, including the Hartford PD. So the informal dance, which was one of the best highlights for ConnectiCon, now it's run by a third party off-site, and it wasn't as good as it should be from what people are saying to me. Like, apparently this year it was a little bit better than last year, but ConnectiCon, the informal dance they had beforehand, it was fantastic. It was one of the best dances to go to. The location of the venue isn't bad. It is one of the biggest convention centers between New York City and Boston, which is saying a lot. And the food-wise, like, the convention food is but you had the food truck festival right nearby, easy walk there. You had a Subway in the Science Center, and of course you got delivery. So food-wise, you're pretty much covered. As far as that goes, it's a prime location for the fireworks because it's right there at the river, and you're just sitting it, like, it's literally right there, which is really awesome. So this year they had plenty of issues. First off, lanyards. So apparently the lanyards ran out during Thursday's pre-registration pickup, and when they ran out, there's like, you know what, come back Friday morning, you'll get your lanyard just fine. Friday morning happened. People didn't get their lanyards. Like, the crazy part was the convention center was supposed to open around 9, I believe, but it didn't open up until, I believe, closer to 10, and people were waiting outside in the rain. And then some people couldn't even get in because they don't have a lanyard to their badge, which is really stupid. And because they don't have a lanyard to their badge, some badges got lost, and people were posting, "Whose badge is this? I have your badge," on the Facebook group. Also, another thing is, one of my good friends, which she is an excellent cosplay photographer, she was attempting to use the handicap doors to get into the convention center early Friday morning. The thing was, the doors were locked, which now you're facing possibly not only a fire code issue, but breaking, a violation with the ADA, or the American Disability Act, which it's not necessarily the ConnectiCon's fault, it's more the convention center, but at the same time you're thinking, hey, let's check all the doors, let's make sure they work, let's check the handicaps, let's get this stuff done and over with before we open up. And apparently that didn't happen. There was even video proof, which, is probably shown, I'll just bring it up right here.
Okay guys, so you see this right here is a handicap accessible door, except not only does it not work, the door is locked. So ConnectiCon, you gotta fix your shit because you can't have shit like this. It's unacceptable.
But the good thing was it was definitely fixed soon after. Another thing this year that the staff was, they definitely need a good bit of work. First and foremost, the volunteers, I feel really sorry for, because I've heard a lot of horror stories that ConnectiCon treats their volunteer force really poorly. Like, it's basically, you're conscripts, you're an expendable force. And their staff-wise, like, some of them do a proper job, I imagine, but some others, they don't, I've heard a lot of issues with security, and that could be attributed to improper training, not mature enough, because they, they can pick like a, if a 16 to 18-year-old wants to do it, but they had no security training beforehand, it's going to create problems because they have like a power fantasy going on, which it probably did happen anyways. So the con staff was definitely aggressive about badges. They were checking people's badges at the convention center, but the weird thing was they were checking badges for even when you were leaving. I'm like, wait a minute, so I'm about to leave the convention center, and you want to check my badge? Where is the logic in that? Like, if you're checking my badge when I'm coming in, it makes sense. But I'm leaving the convention center and you want to see my badge. You see where the problem is, people. Now, there was supposed to be 2 gaming events going on at the convention center. The League of Legends one was supposed to happen, but apparently it got canceled, but there was no proper notification to either the teams going there, or even, I believe, some of the event organizers, which some of the teams, one of them, you had people coming in from California, the UK, and they weren't really properly noticed until like closing in on like a month or two before the convention starts. So it's like, okay, that's really laying the ball down here. That's really unprofessional. Also, for the Overwatch event, I believe it didn't happen because they were not able to give Blizzard a heads up, because as soon as they tried to, I believe there was an IP issue, so Blizzard blacklisted them, which you can also see here that ConnectiCon was begging for them to kind of like help them out on Twitter, which I don't think is there anymore, but someone screen capped it. So yeah, 2 gaming events that should have been an awesome thing turned out to be a dud. Or 2 duds in this case. Also, another thing that was going on is the live stream they were live streaming on YouTube, which is, you know, potentially a cool thing, but the problem is that when you live stream, okay, it's over, this video is saved. If there's a copyright issue, it would get taken down, and that's what happens with both Friday and Saturday's video. It got taken down. Personally, they probably should have done it on Twitch, because they would have probably a better chance with the copyright issues than YouTube would ever. There was also other things too. That the one noticeable thing is the convention center closed at 9 p.m. For the convention center to close at 9 p.m. is almost suicide. You are shooting yourself in the foot. Not with a pistol, with a shotgun at this point. Your foot is gone. Like, think about it this way. The late night convention is always going to be fun because you got late night panels, late night events, you can hang out with your friends there still. There's stuff to do. And when you shut down a convention center for the convention at 9 p.m. and expect people to do other things, people are going to be bored. They're going to look like, hey, I just spent $80 on my badge, and you're telling me that the convention center closes at 9 and now I'm left to whatever the Marriott has and the off-site stuff? Not really showcasing the money's worth here. And also, I did an interview with a person who wishes not to be named, but he definitely had some really interesting stuff here, which I'm just gonna let it go off right here and just take a listen, because this is really an eye-opener.
So, you told me earlier before that you ran panels and photo shoots. So tell me a little bit about like what was the process this year compared to the previous years.
It's the process was pretty much the same in that it's probably the worst convention I've ever worked with. So it's, like I said, like being at the convention was one thing, then planning for it was its own kind of, I don't want to say nightmare, but you know, multitude of problems. So first off, running a panel. Any other convention I've attended, even smaller ones, you submit your application, you get the email back saying submission received. Here's a copy of everything you sent. You can check for spelling errors. You know, if you need to contact us further, here's another email. You know, this and that. ConnectiCon, there's no email communication. You send the application, you wait for the schedule to be updated. That's it. You don't get to know if they received it. You don't get a copy back. You don't get to know if it's accepted or denied or pending. You just have to wait until the schedule is posted up. And it's like, that's already a problem on its own. But then this year, the bigger problem was it took a very long time to confirm the schedule. In fact, I think everything was pending up until the con itself, because there was this thing about guests were given their panel times as priority. And the other problem is you try to send questions. I feel like to this day, for the last 2 years, 3 years maybe, I never got a response back. And that's not the Yahoo email problem. I don't know if you know, but Yahoo and AOL accounts just are ignored for some reason, I guess. They couldn't program a email bot to receive them because they filter it out as spam for some reason. So I wasn't using Yahoo email. I still use my Gmail. I still never get responses back. Like last year, I sent them an email to change some of my details, like the description for my panel. They just never got back to it. It was never changed and stayed that way in the final schedule. And yeah, it would have been nice if they fixed that, but they didn't. Fan ran photo shoots. There's usually 2 ways a con will do it. If it's strictly fan run, you submit your thing, you do it anywhere you want. It's up to you to make it happen. The con doesn't interfere. They just put your information up there, right? Then the other way to do it is the con accepts applications and they put it on their schedule, and the con will make sure your photo shoot will happen. So you get less choices where it can happen. It has to be scheduled. You make sure it won't conflict with anywhere. Like, it's like an event of the con, basically. So last year, they kind of like said the con would help, but they didn't. So you got like the cons of both like processes. This year, they did. Staff did show up to make sure photo shoots would run, but you still had the disadvantage of like you only had 6 options to run your photo shoot, which is, you know, some photo shoots aren't that big. You don't need these 1 of 6 designated areas for it to happen. But you know, had to be on con grounds. It could not be inside. So last year I ran panels for X amount of hours, and I got a voucher for a 2016 badge, which, by the way, I'm not a fan of. I'd rather have a refund for my badge, like most cons do, you know, the year of.
Yeah, like Anime Boston.
Yes, exactly. So 2016, I ran a panel, they gave me a free badge for 2017, right? So I go to the con, and at some point I did realize, like, the voucher says 2016, but in my head I'm thinking, like, well, if it says 2016, that obviously means it's for 2017, because all these vouchers are for the next following year, right? I'm in the pre-reg line, and I'm trying to like scan like the QR, and they said it's not working. They don't know what's wrong. I tell them this might be the problem, and you know, because it's just a pre-reg badges. Like, obviously they can't handle it, so they send me to talk to someone else, to management. I'm not sure who I talked to, but I was talking to this person, and they weren't really having any of it. I was telling them, like, I was supposed to have a free badge this year, and they're telling me, no, you got one for last year. Like, my free badge was for 2016, which is, you know, just sounds like such like an impossible, like, how can the con make this kind of mistake, right? Oh, yeah, and I don't know if anyone's highlighted this one, but, like, the focus on communicating through Facebook is very strange. Like, I have trouble finding tweets, I have trouble finding updates on the website, on Grotix, but everything I hear is, oh, they posted that on Facebook. I go check the ConnectiCon Facebook page, and yes, like, there's a lot of communication happening on there for some reason. If you're running like a huge like thing like this, you shouldn't primarily be using Facebook. Because I was having trouble getting answers through email, I did go to Facebook. I messaged Matt Daigle directly about a question. He said, talk to this guy and this guy. He gave me first names. He didn't give me emails, job positions, Facebook links. He just said 2 names. I don't want to repeat it just because I don't want to, you know, I don't want people digging through the problem, but he could have said, go to the site and look for a list of emails. Like, that would have been fine, but the fact that he gave me first names, like, he knew who to talk to, but he failed to let me know who to talk to. So that was kind of like a head slap for me, being like, well, that got me nowhere, and at that point I didn't even want to try to like dig in further, because there's no reason for me to like put effort to just get some answers for some questions, you know? And when I go back next year, I'll say no, because I went this year because I had a free badge. And you know, my panels weren't accepted this year for a reason, and I don't have a free badge. I'm just not going to go next year, because I shouldn't have to deal with this much stress, because other cons, it's so simple. Like,
so what can ConnectiCon do for the future? What does it face? Again, first and foremost here, that it's not really growing. At best, it's staying where it's at, or if not, decreasing in attendance. So with that, the rising badge prices is not helping at all. Like, if people are paying that much money to only have that much of little content, it just doesn't seem to be worth it, because, again, the convention is in direct competition with all the other New England conventions out there. Like, they're thinking, oh, we're one of the best for Connecticut. Well, that's fine, but we're in the New England area, and people can just go to the other states really easily. Like, you got over 20 to 30 plus conventions in the New England area alone. This is the New England area alone, again. And you got stuff like PAX East, Anime Boston, New York Comic Con, Rhode Island Comic Con, Boston Comic Con. You got like But you know, there's so many conventions out there with so many varied things that it's really hard to justify attending ConnectiCon now. Like, it also brings up the issue, what does ConnectiCon distinguish itself as? What does it have that others don't, or what they can pride themselves in? And if it's just guests, you know, that won't hold up. Like, what content do they have? What makes them so special that the other conventions are jealous about? Because they have to concentrate in a few areas at least, because I felt like they took a lot of pieces in a lot of different places, but they never really maximize it, unless technically you count the guests, but that's not really a good way to go. Because guests alone don't sell a convention. Your other content does. How you manage it does. The staff does. You know, you need to have also everything in one area again, and that includes the off-site dance. That has to be back in the Marriott again. Like, I know it does have some issues, I will admit it, but it's just better because security-wise, the risk, you can lower it down so much if everything's just in one area. Easy to micromanage. So, convention congoers don't even have to go out, walk out, take a shuttle bus. You know, convenience factor. The convenience factor is there. Like, also, ConnectiCon has to talk to their community more. When people make feedback, even constructive feedback, sometimes they felt like this is ignored or even blocked out entirely, you know, because they have actually been banning people from their ConnectiCon page for a poor review and all that stuff, including a radio talk show host. He couldn't go on their page anymore because he posted up his opinion and review of ConnectiCon. It was constructive, it wasn't bashing it, it's just stuff that just happened and now it's just blocked out from it. Like, they have to listen to the community. They have to look at themselves like, okay, what do we need? What can we do better? The lanyard thing was an embarrassment. And as much when they were asked about it, they said that it was the sponsor's job, it was the sponsor's responsibility for the lanyards, and the shipping wise, it just couldn't come in on time. Well, if the shipping was a problem, even because it happened after 4th of July weekend, you know, it was the next weekend over. Wouldn't you think the most logical way to do it was to order the lanyards early, to get it early, just to make sure, like, okay, we're going to get this before 4th of July weekend, and we're going to hold on to it. Because that's the smartest thing to do. When the convention center comes, we have it right then and there. We have it. We don't have to wait for it. There are, you know, you also got to do is you got to properly train your people, and you got to treat your volunteers a lot better. Because if your volunteers are getting treated like shit, all it's going to do is people word of mouth. They're going to say, you know, don't volunteer for this, don't volunteer for this. And what's going to end up happening is people won't volunteer because it's just not worth it. So when you're struggling on the staff numbers and you're relying on volunteers, the volunteers aren't coming in. So ideally, you're going to be spread thin, you know, and proper training for some of those people, especially security, you know, just get them properly trained. I know it's not the most ideal conditions. You got people coming in with varied backgrounds and all that stuff, and trying to train them for a crazy weekend in only a span of like hours is not the best, but try to give some form of proper training, you know. Like, I'm not the only one here who's voicing my concerns. There are other, again, like news outlets, there are other, you know, media outlets that have been, you know, also noticing this as well. And when you have people like that notice, you know, that's within the geek culture, the congoer culture, that are posting out this content on their websites, YouTube channel, radio show, or what else, then you know you have a problem. Then you gotta, you know, I don't want this convention to fail, but at the rate it's going to fail. Like, the convention is going to end up not being worth going to. Like, I'm not saying it's a guarantee you're not going to have fun. I'm sure there are people out there, if you had fun at this convention, that's awesome. More power to you. But I'm just saying here is that, you know, with nowadays money being more of an issue with everyone, now we're going to have to look back and be like, okay, what conventions can I go to that maximize, you know, the money I put into it to have a lot of fun, to guarantee that I have a good time. And ConnectiCon, when I think about you compared to the other stuff out there, it's not looking good. I really do hope you guys fix a lot of these issues and start communicating a lot more. So with that here, folks, that's going to be about it for today. If you enjoyed this video, or if you have anything to post about your ConnectiCon experience, especially this year, post it down there in the comment box. Also, don't forget to like and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. This is Geeky Panda here. I'm out. Stay geeky, my friends.